Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for June 7th, 2016. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Ahrens?
Here.
Kammerer?
Here.
Carbonaro?
Here.
Daney?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here. You may want to hang around for this. If
President Wallace?
we're going to
Here.
be discussing,
This is chicken.
excuse me, before you leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're all here.
They've been given this.
And you're not leaving until we all get to hold that baby. That's pretty, yeah, that's a big advocate right there. Wow.
Yeah, you may want to hang around for this because we're talking about beekeeping, chickens, and
All right.
surfaces.
First item on the agenda this evening for the Committee of the Whole meeting is under Planning and Zoning Committee, Chairman Ranke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have beekeeping, chickens, and pools tonight. And since there's such an interest in chickens, why don't we start with the chickens? Staff has made a very specific set of recommendations to us. Chief among them is that the chickens be permitted on lots that are larger than 2 acres. Given what I've read in the newspaper and some of the other literature, it sounds like maybe that's a little bit too restrictive. So with that, I'll turn this over to the staff to talk about this a little bit more.
Thank you, Trustee Ranke. I'll just go back to a little background. The chickens and bees section, or the agricultural section of the ordinance, is affected by our initial revision to Chapter 5 of the zoning district. And when we started discussing Chapter 5, which includes a lot of other things, the beekeeping, chickens, and the impervious surface portions of the discussion kind of surfaced, and we did some additional research at the direction of the village board. In the initial discussion, we had actually proposed to reduce the current agricultural zoning from 10 acres down to 2 for things like keeping bees and chickens and horses and those types of things, which are in our agricultural district. And the 10 acres dates back to when the village was agriculture and converting into development. When we talked about it at the committee meeting, the board directed us to look at other towns in terms of their ordinances regarding what we refer to as backyard chickens, or as these people have them in a smaller lot setting. So I'm going to skip a couple of charts. But this chart here is some of the research we did on the surrounding towns, and this is all included in your packet. In terms of our chicken research, we researched 8 other towns, and just in the general area: Batavia, Bensonville, Burr Ridge, Downers Grove, Elgin, Evanston, St. Charles, and Westmont. And as you can see, they vary they all allow chickens, and you can see that they vary in the number that are allowed, and then their setbacks are different. Some require 30-foot setbacks, some 10, some 50 feet, so they vary. They're all mostly require some type of enclosure. And as you see in our staff comments, that we said if you decide to go that route, we believe an enclosure is required. The free range is not good. We've had experience with free range chickens currently, and they end up being all over the road, neighbors' yards. They can be susceptible to getting hit by cars and those types of things. So we think enclosures are required. And then some of the other generic requirements: no roosters, no slaughtering, only in the rear yard. Those are pretty standard through the various other towns. So that's the sum and substance of the research we did with the other communities. I will point out we did get a letter from a resident or somebody who lives near the village. They do not like us considering. They think that the chicken shouldn't be confined to this type of scenario, and that letter is also included. We received that quite some time ago. But in terms of our staff, there were 24 towns that we researched. 8 allowed it. I went over the typical restrictions. The other 16 towns all prohibited chickens, and if, as our staff researched, if the village board and trustees direct us to want to do and include chickens on smaller residential lots, we believe that they should only be permitted in our estate district and our SR2 and SR3 district, and the SR2 is roughly 10,000 square foot, and the SR3 is roughly 8,000 square foot. The smaller lots tend to be, when they get down to the 6,000 square foot lots, they tend to be a little closer in terms of the setbacks and that.
Jim,
Or on the property, chickens are kept within an enclosed structure and prevent them encroaching on the neighboring properties. At least have a 5-foot setback from all lot lines. Building permits required for the structure, since if you see some of the pictures of them, they're pretty formidable structures. I mean, they're like a shed with a little enclosure for the chickens. No roosters, no slaughtering. And then no other poultry, including but not limited to geese, ducks, and turkeys, shall be kept on the property. And there's a Department of Agriculture registration. So that's what the staff came up with if you decided to give us the direction to craft an ordinance. And we would obviously look at some of the other communities and put the more specific language in an ordinance.
Jim, what does a quarter-acre lot fall into? Would it be at the SR2 or SR3?
Quarter-acre lots, generally SR2. It's about 10,000 square feet. An acre's 43,560 square feet. Quarter-acre, doing the math, is right around 10,000.
And is
So
it,
the SR2 lots are allowed.
and as it stands right now, that if we were to do the suggested staff change of lowering it from 10 acres to 2 acres, there's really virtually no one in town that has a 2-acre lot. Maybe, yeah, that's basically
The
it.
map that's up there shows the lots that are,
14.
14.
Yeah, but I mean,
Right.
realistically.
Nobody has that.
Sunrise Sunset Park,
Right.
you're not going to raise chickens there, and just realistically, there's just nobody that would be able to do it with 2 acres.
Yeah, there's not many, there's a couple, but not many.
I see where you're going with this, and I agree.
Yeah.
I think the 2 acres is probably too restrictive. If we have the locational requirement, if we have the locational requirements, I think we should have the screening requirements to permit somebody who's responsible to build a coop with a building permit and put it in their backyard. My only concern, and I guess this really isn't justified, but if you have several neighbors and they all have, like if all of my neighbors, all 6 of my neighbors put in a coop, well, now we've got a whole mess of chickens out there. So that's a concern. I am concerned about, having too many chickens in a small area. But as for an individual, and I don't know if people do that, but as individual lot-wise, I think that makes a lot of sense to be less restrictive.
Good?
I might just bring attention to the study that I got from Elgin here at this point in time for the backyard chicken pilot program, and it's the wrap-up report. And after this was all said and done with Elgin, they started off with allowing 15 permits to address your issue of 6 people having chicken permits. I guess it's possible if everybody got a permit right around you, but it's probably unlikely if the village restricted permits to a certain amount. In this case, Elgin, after they did this pilot study, they came back with several positive responses, several of them being overall very positive, no reaction from the neighbors. Some participants reported the neighbors were at first worried, but now supportive. Participants who have been able to share the eggs with the neighbors, created a sense of community in Elgin, formed friendships, provided social media, allowed 100% of grass clippings and food scrap recycling, increased awareness of backyard chickens, ongoing communication amongst the participants, helped self-police it, and it goes on and on. And in the end, what they basically agreed that they wanted to do was to increase the amount of permits up to 25 permits for the city of Elgin. And I think maybe having a limit on permits would be a fair way to do it, just allowing so many. Then you wouldn't really have that issue, but because there's not going to be thousands of people that want to raise chickens. But if we limited the permits and still let a group of people do it, like Elgin, then I think that would be fair.
So in addition to the zoning, would you also have a permit requirement?
Apparently Elgin did, yes.
Okay, but I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, I think getting a permit is fair. I mean, as long as it's reasonably priced for people to get a permit.
Well, they're going to have to get a building permit anyway, so you could tag
Right.
it.
Right.
One thing about a permit also is that it could be reviewed on an annual basis. You know, if we had started with X amount of permits and, they weren't all used, then we can maintain that level going into the next year. If they were all used and there was more demand, we could take a look at where those areas would be.
Sure.
And increase the permit level.
So we would not only issue permits, but there'd be a limit on the number.
Apparently that's what,
Is he having some conditions as to what the permits would be and what the inspections would look at and all that kind of stuff?
there would probably be some things we'd have to take some, consult with other towns and other people and that have done it before us. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. I think there's things that can be done, and we can get information. And I like what some of the other villages are doing with having shorter areas with as far as their what is it called? The what?
Back end.
Yeah, where you can put them, like.
The rear
like,
yard?
Yeah, the back area for 5 feet in St. Charles and 10 feet in Bensonville. And I think if we start saying you got to be 30 feet or 50 feet from a neighbor, that in itself becomes sort of restrictive.
Right.
Because you start measuring off how close a quarter-acre lot is, and now you'd be putting your chicken coop in the middle of your yard, the middle of your own backyard, instead of closer to a property line. So I'd certainly, like us to consider having
Are you also restricting the number of coops you can have by the size of your lot?
what's that?
Are they restricting the number of coops that you can have by the size of your
You can only
lot?
have one coop, and you could only have, say, 4 chickens. It's restricted by, you wouldn't have more than one coop. I don't think we'd allow more than one coop, and you'd only have, some towns have 8 chickens, some towns have 4, 6, but no roosters, as Jim was saying. None of the cities allow roosters, and I think that's a good idea. Certainly a noise factor there is eliminated. I think there's a lot of positives if we make it accessible and less restrictive for people to do it.
Well, what do you do in a situation if a person does have 2 acres?
Let them raise chickens.
Want to put more than have more than 4 chickens? I'm wondering if
I think we walk before we run here.
One of the things
my
that it
opinion.
looks like Elgin did was had a pilot program. They limited the number during the pilot program.
They did.
And they may be doing, and you probably know that, they may be doing more and allowing more afterwards. Because if you limit them now, you may have, and you're going to do it every year, you may get into a situation where more people want them than you've identified, and you're going to be having chicken lotteries for people who want that.
No.
No. So I would suggest whatever you want to do, we do a pilot program and make sure it's,
Well, that's what Elgin did. They had 15 permits to begin with, and they tried. I don't think they even filled all their permits, but it was so overwhelmingly positive that in the end they did raise their permits to 25.
right.
The only,
I have,
go ahead.
does anyone have any idea how many people have chickens in this village now? No.
Oh, you got about 8.
We have,
Yeah.
we get requests, we get 4 or 5 a year if we allow them. People call us and ask. And we have had some rogue chicken keepers that are.
Show them the pictures, Jim.
Are those feral chickens?
Is that
And some geese. We had some people raising geese.
geese? Yeah,
Word.
yeah.
Canadian geese, lovely pets.
I have a range of questions. It's a chicken pun. I'm referring to the letter that was written by the lady who thought she had to speak for the chickens because they can't speak for themselves. It appears that there is some type of beekeeper certification. Is there any type of training or certification for the people who are going to be caging these chickens? Or
we can look into that.
Yeah, we did say, state that you register with the State Department of Agriculture, but I don't know if the Extension Service offers any kind of training for chicken keeping or that type of stuff.
Because it seems to be her main argument as to why they shouldn't have chickens in the backyard.
Somebody can answer that.
Come up to the podium.
My sister-in-law that lives in St. Charles got her chickens at Charles Farm in St. Charles, and they have classes for people who are raising chickens.
There you go.
So
Perfect.
they are free and available.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so that takes care of that issue. Okay.
Good to know.
Okay.
A huge thing.
What is this that they must register with the Illinois Department of Agriculture?
That's something that we found in our research that
Their database.
similar to the beekeeping. You want to?
I think it's a good idea, actually, because what that can do is if there's some kind of problem with the breeder that you got the birds from, they can notify you so they can go and try to other people.
And Jim, you'll work with the residents to make sure that it's not too stringent. I mean, obviously, we're very cautious about this, but we also want to make it user-friendly and friendly to people who are committed to doing this the right way.
We've gone on the Facebook page of Mrs. Rasmussen has cited. It's very informative, and we'll do that.
Right.
Okay, do we get to put the baby now?
We've got, I'm sorry, but I think we've got a heck of a lot of information that the staff has done, thank you very much, that rather than sending it back to staff, I think we could make some kind of preliminary decision tonight.
I think that's a good idea.
Don't you?
Well, I think
What further information do you need?
Well,
Well, we'd
I mean,
wanna
how this
determine.
works is the committee then refers it to the village board, so I'm anticipating that the staff will come up with something, we'll incorporate our comments as you usually do, and then we'll be able to vote on it at the board level. I mean, unless there's any objections.
No, but I think what Trustee Aaron's maybe saying is that let's kind of iron out some details. Number of birds, right? Everybody agrees 4?
Four would be, do you feel,
I'm a big
as community members, do you feel 4 would be a reasonable amount of birds to?
I'm a big proponent of a minimum square foot per bird.
Well, see, that's where I have problems understanding. If we limit it to 4 birds, and again, somebody comes in and they have 2 acres of property, and they want to put, 2 coops in or something, so maybe what you're saying is the way to proceed based on the square footage.
Yeah. So, minimum square footage per bird. I'd like to see indoor and outdoor. I don't want these birds like they have here covered constantly. I mean, I don't want to see people with birds in their backyard where the chicken never gets outside.
Walking around with
I
little
want to go over
umbrellas?
some
Right,
of
it
that.
says right here, I mean, this is Bensonville, covered coop, no, which one is it? Enclosed at all times in Downers Grove. Who wants a chicken that's enclosed at all times?
And I think we,
In chicken wire, in chicken wire.
Oh, okay.
So they have,
I'm reading that wrong.
right.
So it doesn't free range.
Okay.
So-
That's what we do want.
So,
But they're not in the
Kind of
dark.
akin to a dog run outside of a
Right.
doghouse. That's
so
kind of,
100 square feet is actually a fairly sizable area.
I like the way that some of these other people word it, like a minimum of 5 square feet per hen. That means when you're building the coop, you've got to be cognizant of how big that thing's got to be, and you're not jamming them in there.
Oh, that's right.
and then I think we need to talk about, as you have said, how much outdoor space. I think that's important, that it's not all closed in on 3 or 4 sides, that they get sunshine and fresh air, and they get to scratch in the dirt and eat bugs, which is what they do.
Right, that's why you need to have like an outdoor farm.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some general guidelines.
Once again, in the information we passed out here, it shows some examples of the chicken coop and the amount of square footage that are there in the coop itself, which I think is pretty.
And then a minimum number of permits to start out, is that what we're talking about?
I don't think that's necessary. I don't think we're going to have 100 people come in and apply for permits.
Well, if we wanted to treat it like Elgin as a pilot study initially, I'm not against that. I mean, find out where we're at. And Elgin, as they did it initially, had 15 permits. So it's a starting point. I don't know.
Just for a point of clarification, and as Trustee Ranky was pointing out, that the text amendment, this will become a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. So the draft text amendment typically would come back for your review along with the rest of Chapter 5, and then we would send it on to the zoning board for the public hearing on the text amendment, and then you'll get a chance to vote on it. So we would bring it back to you with these comments into it in an actual ordinance language that our village attorney is also comfortable with, because it has to be legal, too.
All right.
We're not going to restrict people in an SR4 district, right?
What's that?
That is what we're recommending, the SR4. If you want to open it up to SR4, those are the smaller lots.
I think we can, because based on what some residents have said and what I've read, if they only need 8 to 10 square feet, even if you have a 6 or an 8,000 square foot lot, chances are your house isn't, lot line to lot line, so you would definitely be able to meet that criteria, 8 to 10
If you
square
want to
feet
do
per bird.
SR4, we can add it.
I think it
SR4,
would.
why not? I mean, people put dog runs on
Wait,
SR4.
SR4, how many square feet
It's
is
You
SR4?
could ask Jim.
I think that's 6,000.
It's SR4 minimum is 6,000 square feet and on a lot, and on our
Okay,
setback is
I do want to interject something here. I grew up the daughter of a farmer, and this particular farmer had chickens. And Adam, didn't you have chickens on your farm?
When I was young, yes.
And I have, and no offense, but chickens are dirty, nasty animals. Just pathetic. They stink. They go around and they peck everything, and they're even though they lay nice eggs, they are dirty, nasty animals, and you have to clean up after them. To have that kind of thing in my neighbor's yard, and I'm in the ER1 zoning, would be upsetting to me, very much upsetting to me. You can go buy organic eggs from any number of places around here. If this was meant to be an agricultural community, I think that would have been done a long, long time ago. Chickens also need to have grass. They need to be able to peck at the ground and get some grass in there. They need the gravel, even though that's included in feeding them. But they still remain to be dirty, nasty animals that yield wonderful eggs. So it would take an awful lot to convince me, especially in SR4, 6,000 square foot lot. The best thing I've ever seen of chicken coops with only 4 to 6 birds was one that you could move around the property, so that even though the chickens were enclosed in an outside area, that area moved. So they always had fresh grass and fresh stuff in the soil, worms, whatever, to eat. But a stationary coop on a 6,000 square foot lot, okay, now you got my ire up, because that's ridiculous, just ridiculous. And that's all I have to say about that.
I have an issue because there's a lot of houses in an SR4 district, my property included, that are larger than homes or lots in an SR3, SR2, or an E1 for that matter. So if you're going to just restrict people from being part of a SR4 or SR3, it's kind of unfair.
Well, let me ask you this. I grew up in Chicago, so I'm leaving it up to the people that were in agricultural areas. I know nothing about chickens except, I buy eggs at Jewel, and if I want a chicken, I buy it at Jewel and put it on the grill, but that's about all I know about chickens. But I'm thinking, if the ordinance were written and it was limited to SR3, okay? If the example that you just brought up, you live in an SR4 area, but your lot is so much larger, I would think that should be able to come before the ZBA and explain that and get a special use permit to put a chicken coop in.
Or you could just put a parameter in there about a minimum square foot of the lot. So even if it's in
there you go.
SR4, you could say,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be arbitrary here, but you could say you have to have a minimum of 8,000 square feet or something like that. So we can put that parameter in there regardless of the zoning, if that's preferable.
Yeah, I think it should be, what is the square foot of your backyard? Because there's some houses in an SR3 district that the house is lot line to lot line, and then there's houses in an SR4 district where it's an 800 square foot house, and their backyard is literally bigger than a house in an SR3.
It can happen that way.
I think it should be based on what size your backyard is. And obviously, if it holds true that you only need 8 to 10 square feet or 8 to 15 square feet per chicken, I don't see what the issue is, but.
And one other thing that we'll have to consider too are rear side
Setback.
We would have a setback of 5 foot. That's what we're recommending.
5 foot.
From a lot line.
That would be good.
You want a chicken coop 5 feet from your house?
Well, it's 5 feet from the backyard of the person's property.
just saying.
And I'm sorry to hear that Trustee Aaron's grew up in a dirty farm, but I grew up around farms in southern Illinois as well, and we had chickens, and they're pretty clean for the most part.
Did you have city chickens?
They bathe.
Well, listen, it depends on how you
Potty train them, Cameron?
depends on how you take care of them.
And we're not talking about a farm. We're talking about people who are interested in a more limited agricultural husbandry type.
Some provision has to be made for reverse corner lots also, because that could be
It would be, we'd restrict them to rear yards. So
which
could
is,
have a reverse corner lot.
Yeah.
It could happen that way, but keep it out of the side yard, so just be in the backyard.
So do you have enough input from the committee then?
On chickens,
We
yes.
do, on chickens, we
So
do.
let's-
Certainly look forward to working with
how large is your lot?
you.
Just a final note, I did get pecked right in the knee when I was a 2-year-old by a rooster, so I'm glad we're not having roosters.
And well-deserved probably, too.
How large is your lot?
What are you doing to that? They're so mean.
Pardon me, how large is your lot? I'm sorry? SR3.
Okay.
I'm certainly not opposed, as Trustee Aaron's mentioned, of having some ability to, if we can allow it, to have the chicken coop be a movable chicken coop and move it from area to area, if that would make her happy.
Yeah. I don't know how you can't enforce it. You can't.
Chicken coop would
There's no way you can monitor that.
Okay. So let us talk about trying to keep us on point here. Let's talk about beekeeping. Jim?
I think it's less controversial.
I think so.
Only 4 bees.
Well, I'm wondering,
We don't even have any bee representation here.
Right.
Trustee Ranky?
Jim, let's
Ranky?
talk about
Hey,
beekeeping.
man, yes.
On
Can we take a little break here?
Beekeeping,
I'm really talking about all these chickens. I'm hungry, and I have some Kentucky Fried Chicken in my car.
I think
Oh, boy.
that's a dandy idea. Dandy idea. Okay, beekeeping.
And we did research of beekeeping in the surrounding communities. We researched in the charts up there, we have evidence from 10 communities that have some type of restriction or either a restriction or no restriction or allow beekeeping. And as you can see, they are pretty much all over the board. But long story short is that in beekeeping, we believe that the community apiary is probably the way to go. Hanover Park has started one. Schaumburg has one also. Beekeeping gets into a little different aspect, as obviously you have people who are The bees are harder to restrict than the chickens. You can't confine them. They're going to fly around. Although honeybees are very valuable, you see a lot of, you see the need for honeybees because of there's an infestation in their reproduction. Hanover Park has just started this community apiary, and they don't allow it anywhere else. They've gotten, and this is where it gets a little hairy, they have a permit for Department of Agriculture, there's private insurance, and they have to have a source of water, and they get a permit from the village. And it is fenced in a pretty large area, basically 250 feet from the nearest soccer field. It's in kind of an open space area. Evanston, again, they have a fence, they allow it, fence, a warning sign, a source of water, city beekeeping license, registering with the Department of Agriculture. Palatine, similar, and then Schaumburg has a permit fee of $603 if you want it on a single-family lot. But they also then establish this community apiary where they've got their own insurance, where there's an insurance requirement. They register with the Department of Agriculture, and it is on 16 acres and is at least 800 feet from the nearest fenced-in area. And then you can see Elgin does not allow it, Streamwood does not allow it. Some of the other towns, they're kind of in the agricultural district of their ordinances. So after our research, we felt that that might be the direction that you would want to go, and we could work with either our park district or the forest preserve on a possible community apiary site.
That was going to be my first question, because it sounded like you were going towards the idea of the community apiary. So I guess I have two questions. Is one, do you have any sites in mind? And two, can you do this so that it doesn't cost the village any money?
We don't have any sites in mind. We looked carefully, and we're a little limited on that. So that's why we thought a partnership would be better. And we will work very hard to make sure it's fenced in and there's water there, and I don't think we need much more.
The bees are coming.
But it's going to cost us some money, though, I would believe, if we did a partnership, even if we shared it with somebody.
What do we have to pay for?
Well, you have to
What's
have
the
a water
chicken to
source,
bee ratio here?
fencing.
How many people are requesting bees?
Not very many. We have.
Like any? Like one a year?
We have we had one, and I haven't checked it. We
How
had
long
one
ago
in
was that?
Westridge subdivisions a couple of years ago.
Why don't we just shoot them to Hanover Park if they're interested then? Why are we even talking about this?
No, because I think that there are people in town that would like to have it. I've even heard that there
Obviously not.
Well, I've heard that there's a beehive on the golf course in Bartlett Hills. Is that correct? Okay.
Kevin?
Yes, there is.
I've heard that there's a beehive on Bartlett Hills Golf Course. Is that correct? Someone has a beehive there or not?
even Danny's out
this
there.
may be rumored. Can I speak?
There,
Here?
we currently have actually 2 hives. I just caught a swarm last week, so I had 1 hive going, now I have another one.
So we do have 2 hives already on village property.
Correct.
Well, they're natural, right? They're not something that we created.
No.
That we know of.
Are they something someone else created?
What do you mean by created?
Are they
I guess
wooden
God created
structures?
the bees. What?
Are they wooden structures?
They, yeah, they're wooden hive boxes.
And the golfers aren't being attacked by the bees and swarms.
They're up by the shop, both hives.
Yes.
Funny how
Honeybees won't bother anybody. They're
Right.
there to, honeybees
Exactly.
won't bother anybody.
Killer bees, we got a problem, but honeybees,
I still am wondering why we even are considering any dollars of this villages at all when we don't have residents that are asking for it.
Well, I don't even
It makes
think-
no sense to me.
I don't,
I don't think we even know how much it would cost to put this together, for one thing. I don't think it's going to be millions of dollars. It may be some money, but then you haven't even asked the people who might potentially be involved if they want to contribute to it, if they want to maintain that facility, if they want to help fund it. So many unknowns we haven't even asked yet. We're just assuming that the village is going to foot the entire bill, or that we're not going to get any support from some other organization, whether it be the Forest Preserve or the Park District or what have you. We just don't know yet.
I think we should be less restrictive in this ordinance and allow homeowners to have beehives, and if it becomes an issue, then we can start addressing it. And I don't think we need to, have an apiary or or anything like that until people start
be fine with
inquiring
that.
on it. And I think we should just allow people to have hives in their backyard. And as Jim stated, very few residents have even inquired on it, but if they do, just allow it.
I see no problem with that. I think if Schaumburg can do it, a much bigger community than we are, they've
Palatine,
obviously figured it out.
I don't have any problem as long as we're not spending any money.
yeah.
And if we're going to put it in somebody, if we're going to allow somebody to put a beehive, their own personal apiary in their backyard, I think we're going to have some pretty specific
Regulate it.
regulations, so signage and all that stuff, in case, I mean, what if there's kids playing and a ball goes over a fence and they don't know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about this whole.
I don't know, I'm spitballing here. I think maybe an E4 minimum.
What? Can't hear you.
The E4, so that they have at least 2 acres, because I really don't want to have to sit out my patio with an EpiPen, you know?
I think there's communities that have worked this out. We don't know. I mean, if Schaumburg allows it, even though they charge quite a bit of money to do it, they must have specifications of lot size and everything else. Is that
But they, yeah, but
right,
also,
Tim?
Most of what they did is, they did a regulation and then charged $600, and they've kind of directed everybody to go to the community apiary because they spent the money to put it in. So that's kind of what Schaumburg and Hanover Park did.
But they still allow people to do.
If they want to pay and get the insurance and all
So-
that. They have regulations for individual lots, so.
So, but we don't know that at this point in time.
We don't have all the regulations that we just, we can find those out, but I think we do need to regulate it, as Trustee Ranky said. We have to, if we're going to allow it, we should put some of the same kind of things for the bees, setbacks of the hive, the fencing, that kind of stuff. And
larger area.
Have any of these other communities that you have listed, have they had any issues with bees? Or
not that
owners
they,
having beehives?
not that
No.
they,
Not that we're aware of.
I don't know that they track bee stings.
Well, and it sounds like you'll come back with some more specific information. And one of my questions is, obviously, you always want to have liability insurance because then there's a ready source of liquid funds to redress any problems. I'd like to know how much, and I know that sounds strange, but I'd like to know how much the bee insurance is. How much does $1 million bee policy cost? I mean, is this
can find out. Yeah.
thousands? Is this hundreds? Because I think that'll help give us a sense of, well, does it make more sense to do a community apiary versus the backyard? And, what are the costs here? And I would be interested to hear the experience of some of these other towns with, and I get both of your points. Are the kids going and knocking over the beehive and running away? Are people getting stung? I mean, who knows? Who knows?
That's
But
the reason.
I would be interested in those things.
That's the reason they wanted bigger lots, because they're saying that the bees forage 3-mile radius in order to bring nectar back to the hive. So you put one in the middle of a densely residential area, they're going to be flying all over everybody's backyard.
So
We could bring some language back to you, and we'll answer those questions also.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so last but not least, pools. Pools as impervious surface or not?
That's
Or per resident.
well put.
I think what we found in our research, and again, we did we did more than 9 communities. I can't see that very good. But we did, again, research what other towns have in terms of impervious surface requirements with pools, whether it is included in the impervious surface or not. And it's kind of more towns included pools as part of the impervious surface. They call them accessory buildings or accessory structures. And so basically, after we did all of our research, we felt that our impervious surface requirements would include them and not change the ordinance the way we have it. And so if you feel that we should allow pools as a pervious surface, then we could revise the ordinance. But most towns consider them accessory use, 9 of them, and 5 towns don't regulate them as they are considered an accessory building, so they'd be treated just like a shed or something.
I understand what you're saying about treating the swimming pool as an accessory use. But I think, and the part of the reason why I feel very strongly about the impervious surface regs is, the idea is to control stormwater.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a zoning issue, but it's not really a use issue. It's a calculation, and to me, it makes sense to take that swimming pool out, to exclude the swimming pools from the impervious surface calculation, because I would think they'll hold water, right?
Exactly.
So if we get an inch or two.
How full your pool is.
I mean, now if it's a 100-year
Starts pouring
flood
over the
event,
edge, then it's an impervious surface.
right, so, and, how often is that likely to happen? I don't know, I think this is one of those things where we can maybe ratchet this down.
Yeah.
I agree.
The only
It would take a
question-
monsoon to fill most pools, wouldn't it? And if we were concerned about runoff onto neighbors, we're probably never going to get that much water unless the pool is completely filled to the top. And who knows, maybe people do that with their pools. But I would think most of them keep it
There's a little bounce in a
6 inches to a foot down, something like that. So to get that much rain, overflow that pool, and then have that water run into their neighbors' yards or whatever, it's pretty unlikely.
And if somebody challenges Brian in court, well, what's the difference between an accessory structure like a shed and an accessory structure like a pool? Well, a pool holds water. So if you build your shed with a roof that holds water, but otherwise, you're not going to run up against that in court.
I agree.
Okay.
And we could take that out of we'd have to change the ordinance, because we would have to exclude pools from our impervious surface calculations then.
It's fine.
Right.
Yes.
I agree.
All right.
So, Mr.
So we
President,
just deduced that pools hold water.
it's hold water. And
Wonders never cease.
I think that's just about it.
Thank you, Chairman Ranky. Next item we have on our agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting. Did you have something else, Jim? Okay. The Committee of the Whole meeting is under Finance and Golf Committee. Chairman Daney.
I'm not prepared.
Have some chicken.
Okay. This is for the discussion only. During the Village Board Strategic Plan Workshop, the Village Board discussed making a donation to the Bartlett Parks Foundation toward their efforts to fund an inclusive playground at Bartlett Park. The Bartlett Parks Foundation has itemized various features of the nature-themed playground they have planned for donations. Included in the memo are 3 items from that list that range in donation prices from $8,000 to $15,000 for your consideration. So we have the Free to Be Me park brochure in front of us with the items that they had listed. And we had talked about allocating $8,000, $15,000 to this project.
No, you did not set aside a specific amount. This was just
I'm
one.
sorry, I can't hear you.
You had not set aside a specific amount.
Oh, set aside. Okay.
You had just indicated that providing a piece of equipment into this park to celebrate our 125th of the Park District would be an appropriate thing. So we just threw some examples out there. You're free to consider any of those.
I didn't hear you.
You're free to pick whichever you want.
Okay.
We had not set aside a certain amount.
Well, why did the price of $8,000 and $15,000 come up? Why did we list that then, Valerie?
Just a couple of ideas that we thought we would to start the discussion.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, when I looked at this, I'm looking at what's available for $8,000 to $15,000, and I know what that park is going to mean to the children that come and use it, and to the families that will see their children partake in this project. I'm going to be frank. I'm a little offended with $8,000 to $15,000. I mean, it's just like, come on, guys. Maybe what we can do is make a pledge or something. Maybe we can allocate, X amount of dollars and do it over a period of time. The Rotary is a relatively small group, and I know that they've just pledged $25,000 to, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we have some Rotarians here.
That's true.
Over a period of time, and what we did is, that pledge, if I remember correctly, was $5,000 a year over the course
I
of.
think it's 5,000 up front
This
and
year.
20,000 more next year.
Right.
So you have to go up to, you have to run up to Hancock with me this year, right?
Yeah, I'm going to run up to Hancock, that's for sure. But there might be something that we could do as a village to help, you know, the Frida Be Me playground. And, you know, I don't want to be accused of always wanting to spend money, but I think in this case, it's just something that's an integral part of our village, and it can mean so much for the community and the children and the families that'll use it. And I don't know where we're going to get the money. I don't know how we could do this, but I think that maybe we could be creative somehow and try and put together something that is a little more reasonable than what I'm looking fair, a little fair, more to the Frida Be Playground Park, you know. So,
Anybody else have any other comments on it?
Board.
yeah, I know.
I think it's a great idea. I know having one of these parks in Bartlett will definitely attract other families to our community. I know that when South Elgin put their Free to Be Me playground in South Elgin, there's a lot of Bartlett residents that go to South Elgin and then they stay in South Elgin and they spend money. So whatever we can do to help fund this project and move it along, I think is in the best interest of the village. So I'd have to agree with Trustee Daney. If we can come up with any more money and get the project moving a little bit quicker, I think it would be money well spent.
And I think it's an ongoing project, right? I mean, they're not breaking ground until 2017.
Yeah, they're looking to reach
So
a
this
certain
isn't
level
something
of
we would need
finance.
right now. They're not going to call us up tomorrow and say, hey, I heard you're going to give us X amount of dollars. They're going to.
No, but I think we would like to have something that we could dedicate sometime between the end of next year so it does celebrate our 125th.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm going to draw on my tenure on the Bartlett Park Board and tell you I attended a session at one of the conventions, and it was just about this, about inclusive parks. And the speaker was not one of the Kennedys, but very closely associated with the Kennedy family and Special Olympics and what we do for children who aren't like everybody else. And he said in the beginning, he said, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter if your child is handicapped or is the best soccer player in the world. He said, every child deserves a chance to get hurt. You know, we're all going, what? And he said, every child deserves a chance to get hurt, whether it's at the playground or in school or whatever, because that hurt is what makes him equal to everybody else. And you got to think about that. And I when they came up with this idea about the Free to Be Me Park, I thought, oh, this is a message from above, because if we can't do something to help this park be built, then we should examine our intentions and what exactly is this village. So I'm definitely for anything we can do.
Yeah.
And we've left out the 125th year chicken coop community project for the,
We just had a lady here
Well,
today that had a.
And I would tell, if the rest of the board believes that, look through here, tell us the one you want to get, and let's look at, if you want to spend more, pick one.
Hey, before we do
I
that,
mean, they gave you a catalog.
I have a couple of questions. This is the blueprint of what the park will look like when this
I
is
drew
done?
out the sculpture.
My question is where's the log cabin and where's our gazebo?
What's on the other side?
Where the existing park is currently, Vince.
Yeah.
The playground,
I think it just covers the north side, north of the gazebo, Vince.
I like the
Just north
glider.
of the gazebo.
Okay, so is it,
I don't care.
You know where the park's at now?
yeah,
So it's just expanding it a little bit to the east and then a
okay.
little bit farther south,
So Deputy Chief Ulrich, this is not
off of
going
Oak
to,
Avenue.
this is not going to interfere with our National Night Out operations?
You know, the one thing that caught my eye,
Okay. Yeah, the map isn't making much sense to me, and I'm listening to what you're saying. Gotcha.
I've seen it so many times.
Okay.
The rotary.
It's like, wait, where'd everything go? Okay.
oh, I didn't know.
Thank you.
I like the spinning.
Okay. So we still have a lot of land there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, the one thing that caught my eye and was the free to be me playground, the entry feature, and donation for that is $45,000. Again, I mean $225,000 for restrooms and for that tree house that was $285,000. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but $45,000. It seems more reasonable to me than doing a small sculpture or.
Well, we could probably talk about this I was going to say ad nauseum, but I didn't mean that. But I think the staff picked out two very good suggestions, and that was the swings, and what was the other thing?
The teeter-totter
Oh, yeah.
and a sculpture.
Yeah. Not particularly for the sculpture, but, yeah.
But think about it for a second.
The teeter-totter.
This is the Village of Bartlett.
And the accessible swing.
This is the Village of Bartlett, and we're putting this in Bartlett Park. And we're saying, okay, my opinion is, all right, we'll give you $15,000. Now go away. Just leave me alone. Let's be an integral part of this. Let's do something that's beneficial. Let's do something substantial.
Well, I think 25,000 is pretty substantial.
Sure.
What?
Can I make a suggestion to the board here? Can we do the swings and say, put congratulations from the Village of Bartlett, 125th anniversary across the bar, the top bar, right? So that's our gift to celebrate the 125th. And then we commit to discussing an additional donation for whatever else the Park District deems necessary later.
Next year's budget.
Next year's budget. So,
I agree.
Let's do the swings as our, hey, you know what, welcome to one, because it's not going to be around for a year, probably longer than a year. We're not going to see it in the 125th anyway, but at least then they'll know that there's a commitment for the swings to be there. And then we can go on to another discussion. I think everybody's very accurate when they say, and I've talked to people, I've got a friend that has 2 autistic children, and I know quite a few people that have kids that are special needs, and they flock to these places. They go there, because there's things there that these kids can do that are no other parks. And I think it's fabulous. So,
It's a great project.
Everybody okay with that?
I agree.
Fine.
Swings? Yeah. What? No?
You can get hurt there too.
I can get hurt there too.
All right.
You know what? I'm going to agree with Trustee Daney here. I'm not in a hurry to spend money,
Yeah.
but I think we ought to get something significant, something substantial, not that the other stuff isn't. I like the 4-foot chalk wall and sensory garden, celebrating if they could put a nice sign that says the 125th Bartlett birthday chalk wall and sensory garden, or the entry feature that recognizes, hey, this is our 125th birthday. So I don't know, maybe we don't want to spend that money, but
Well, we're not going to do it now anyway. They're not even going to, right now they're just collecting
No,
commitments.
it's just, it would be a commitment. I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure when they would get it in the
I
ground.
promise to pay you for a cheeseburger today that we can, or eat today and we can pay for it on Tuesday.
Right, if you hang a Village of Bartlett
I
flag
agree.
on the flagpole.
Fine.
All right.
Wait, let me understand this. You agreed, so are we going to do the chalk wall?
Well, I think what we want to do is find out what, the chalk wall is what, how much is it? 40. Okay. Okay, well, let's commit to that, and we'll find a way to make sure that we're okay with it. Yeah.
That's right. Whatever you commit to, we'll make it work. I just
We're
need to
doing
know
the
what
chalk
you
wall
want to do.
rather than the entrance area?
Yeah.
And the
I think the
flag-
entrance is going to be their Parks Foundation.
That's
baby,
what I
right?
thought also.
We don't want to steal anybody's
Yeah,
thunder.
it's the Parks Foundation's baby.
The chalk wall it is.
Well, chalk wall and sensory garden, because that's an important part of it, too.
Oh, yeah, it's in the same thing. That's right.
Okay.
and
Anything
the
else,
flag and the
Chairman
flagpole.
Danny?
No, that's it. That concludes everything.
Can we talk about some of these other things on the back of the, other things that we're going to do for our 125th?
Oh,
Sure, we can talk about that.
Just a little bit?
Paula, you want to take that?
Just that.
You want to go through some of it? Okay.
Well, the one that I've been working on a lot this week is the Guinness World Record in coordination with National Night Out. It's a fun idea. It's a really nice way to engage the community in our anniversary, learning a little bit about our heritage. The group of folks that we've been working with to come up with, well, what record do we break, was a little bit of a challenge. Every time we came up with something, somebody would go, oh, no, that's too dangerous, or, oh, no, don't do that. That's going to be really too hard to do. So we finally settled on the train whistle. We think that we can blow Chatham, New Jersey out of the water. And
pun intended.
a lot of the requirements for documentation dovetail really nicely with what they do at National Night Out, because they have the photographs, they have the aerial photograph. So a lot of those tick marks that we have to do to verify the record breaking are already happening at National Night Out, and it's a big draw for people. So we think that we'll be able to do that. We talked a little bit about the fall golf outing. We'll make sure that that won't conflict with the foundation's outing. 4th of July, you saw my emails about being the grand marshals for the float.
I was going to ask you, do we have to write on the deal, or can I throw candy? That's the only fun part.
I know it's the
Throwing
only fun part,
candy is the only fun part.
no,
of
it's
it.
just,
writing
it's
the
just
segue.
one
The
year.
most fun part of the parade.
But it's just one year. It's very important that you wave.
Got to do a lot of waving
We'll
this
put Trustee Aaron's on the very top, and she can wave.
There is extra room on the float.
Okay.
The 4th of July and the Lions Club have been really wonderful to work with. They're very excited about having you on the float, having you be the focal point for our anniversary being the focal point theme of the parade, and they're really very excited about it. We had 1 million questions. How big is the float? Who drives the float?
An Animal House looking like float, hopefully? Yeah.
Well, there was a little bit of confusion with me in the police department this year, thinking I wanted to send the float back, but like back through the route. I'm like, no, I don't want to do an Animal House thing. So let's see, what else do we have on our list? Oh, the T-shirt contest is coming up. We're working with Arts and Bartlett on doing that. The deadline is.
We're having a T-shirt contest?
Well, we're having a logo contest that we're.
Logo.
Not a
Yeah,
wet
you're right.
T-shirt
I should really
contest.
clarify that for the record. It is a logo. It is a logo contest that will be put on a T-shirt. The designs for that are June 20th.
That's it.
You've seen the banners on West Bartlett Road, and of course the exhibits in the museum. The 125 artifact collection from our residents has been overly successful. We got way more than 125 new artifacts into the museum. It'll be, I don't think PM has it completely done yet, but a lot of those artifacts will be in the cases that are on the hallway. So we're really looking forward to that being completed. Yes, yeah.
Why are we selling the T-shirts and not Arts and Bartlett?
Arts and Bartlett is selling the T-shirts.
Oh, because your memo says that the village was selling them.
Oh,
The
no.
proceeds going to the arts.
Oh, no. I meant they'll be doing it.
Okay.
Paula, what's, I'm certainly in favor of the Guinness Book of World Records, trying to break that, but, yeah, what's the cost on a bunch of train whistles, just out of curiosity? Are they expensive?
$900.
$900 for how many?
It's whatever we need to break the record and then some. So it's like
Eight?
it's like 1,500. It's like 1,500.
Maybe you don't want to see the second largest ball of twine in the world.
Oh, you need to call Ted Lewis because
Bring your own
he
train.
bought an extraordinary amount of train whistles for the centennial, and he may still have a couple cases.
And we might have BYOW.
Bring your own whistle.
I still have mine.
As long as we can count it.
It has
we'll
to be a
take it.
train whistle, though.
Has to be a train whistle.
Is there a Guinness World Record for strangling the most chickens too close to the lot line?
Believe me, if they could think of a way to count it and verify it, there will be a record for it. It's amazing.
Bees.
It'd be fun.
With that, anything else? I'll entertain
No,
a
we're
motion
done,
to
Nick.
adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Aaron. Ranky, seconded by trustee Kramer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Paula.
Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Daney?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
We are adjourned.